Our government is not right now funding to the extent that is required for a nation to be a sports nation. We are seeing in cities increasingly availability of public playing spaces are going. Where should we head to, or what should be the future be like?
I made my pitch. We need those spaces because that is the only place where without any restrictions, people can use it for any kind of games. That is the only place where sports is a level playing field.
The only way I feel like can move forward is we have a free market. We have a lot of private players now entering to fill this gap of lack of space, right? So we have turf fields on top of roofs. We have even like a small plot of land nowadays. There are like 5 or 6 turf fields coming up there. So those spaces are important. They are playing a very crucial role to make sure that more people are active.
Privates can do both, which is both serve the public and also make money. And there is a new kind of solution coming up in India, which is Hi and welcome to another episode of Gameplay Sport. Along with me are the usual suspects, Arvind Bharti and Kailash Kaushik. Arvind and Kailash, land has always been a very important topic of debate in India, whether it's family feuds, whether it's fights in the government, or whether it's international wars.
Yeah.
I remember, Kailash, that you were sort of raging about something that had recently happened in Bengaluru to do with land and sports.
Yep. So this is in Indranagar where IBBC, which is a club which practices there, there's a court, and I have gone there and played. I've also gone there wanting to play, gotten irritated that people were playing cricket on the basketball field court and shooed him away. Recently, there was an idea and a proposal by the BBMP that they would improvise the stadium. So they would put some roofs, they would provide parking, and make the court better. And I was really excited. The very next day, the residents of Indranagar said they were not happy with that. They were worried about access. Who would get to play? Like, would others be allowed? Will the ground just change into something commercial? And more importantly, they were also worried about the general, hustle, bustle, traffic, congestion, and all of that. So I am biased, and I would want the court to get better. But I think we can understand the other side. But I think at the heart of it is land.
So I found this document called the National Development Draft for Sports on the Ministry of Youth website from 2011. And it defines sports as a public good. And, as an economist, that term is interesting for me because, they say sports is a public good like health or education. And it, I think, will provide us a kind of concept to think about land and sports. So, a public good is essentially anything which is non-excludable. That means that everyone has right to use it.
Okay.
And so sports playing spaces is a non-excludable good. But I think the two interesting things is that one is the good over here is not sport. It's a piece of land which has been allocated to the sport. And two, that why is sports called a public good is because it has something called positive externalities, which is that when somebody plays, the benefit of it is felt by people who are not also playing. So for example, education is a public good because when someone gets educated, it has a benefit to the community.
Right.
Health is a public good because if a mother is healthy, then the children also are healthier.
So when I make jokes, I make the society better. Public good.
That's what you got out of this.
Yes.
Okay.
So, one way of just thinking about this is like, what do you think about playing spaces and availability of playing spaces while growing up? And has there been any kind of shift over time?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I totally agree with this idea of it being a public good, equating it to education and health. Because we've talked about this before in our first episode, about how we learn so many of our social and life skills through play, right? So if we are learning important life lessons in a school, we are also learning important life lessons in a playground.
Yeah.
So there are definitely positive externalities, and I can definitely vouch for my personal growth in these spaces.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, gully cricket was played on a field. The gully was not there. But now I have realized you will actually in Bangalore have to find a really empty gully to even play gully cricket. So once I have actually seen this change, right? Even in Mysore, I've seen the places where I would play have been cordoned off, built a compound and stuff. And things have gone really small. So you really have to search for where you can just go run or play or something. And I think it's certainly a good, which we really need to think about how to preserve.
So we went and spoke to Manuja, who's a very senior sports journalist who works for Times of India and who's grown up playing and covering sports in Bangalore. Let's hear from Manuja about how public playing spaces have changed in Bangalore. Since we have you here, I thought I'll just tap into the fact that, you've been someone who's been following and playing sports for so long. And I think you've been in Bangalore for...
All my life.
All your life, yeah.
All my life.
So, we had been talking a bit about how when we were young, we used to just go out and play. And now more and more we feel like, younger kids are all going to, different academies for training, for coaching. So I wanted to ask you, your experience as someone who's been in Bangalore, played when they were young, covered sports, has there been a change in playing spaces in Bangalore?
Playing spaces, when you talk about playing spaces, I'll ask you, where are the playing spaces? Where are the public playing spaces? If you look at Bangalore as a whole, you have probably a few parks. I mean, we do have a lot of parks, but do those parks cater to sport? No, they don't. So, they have a seesaw, a swing, and those gyms that they have, and those walking tracks. Don't ask me why we need so many walking tracks. But I just feel, and I feel very pained as a Bangalorean that we're depriving a whole lot of, a generation of children of a childhood, which probably anybody who's from 80s or 90s will relate to. I remember I studied in Bishop Cottons, and one of the things that we always did was we walked down Brigade Road to the Sullivan Police Grounds to play hockey. So there's nobody who plays. And, as you walk down those roads, you had these shopkeepers who would just wish you luck, and you're carrying your stick and walking, and somebody will offer you a discount on ice cream if you won. Those are memories which is for life for us in terms of, and this is something, it's just not me, at least a generation, 2 generations before me will tell you, which was a norm in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Where playing spaces, the rivalries between schools. But now the academic focus is so different.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know the last time I saw a child playing on the street.
Today, if someone who's a young Manuja who wants to be a hockey player, or someone who's a young cricketer, what would be their journey of making it to a professional stage? Like you said, right? You were going to a local park, and then this stadium which was accessible in Brigade Road. In today's, for today's generation, how would those steps happen? Where would they be going to learn, and how would they sort of progress to make it to a national level?
Yeah, very funny. Somebody in North Bangalore asked me the other day, my son's interested in hockey. Where does he go to play? I didn't have an answer. Wow. Because there is no academy
and it's not a national sport, but it's probably the sport we've won the most Olympic medals.
Yeah, I mean, it is our most decorated sport. I mean, for me, a yardstick of a sport and its success is what we've done at the Olympics. So that is one of the most decorated sport for us. And also what is happening is, I think, policies have changed. I mean, we need better policies to protect public sporting spaces. A lot of these grounds that we had, I think it's almost like 50 years ago that the Kitturani Channamma Stadium came up in Jayanagar, which is the Jayanagar Madhavan Park stadium that they say. What began as it's a huge space for the people of South now has a track, basketball, clubs have taken over. A common man, where does he go?
Yeah.
There's the shrinking space for a child.
So even the public spaces is not accessible anymore to everybody. So I want to know, one of the things you're saying is private academies are going, have you seen sort of in the last sort of 10, 15 years where, privates have played a role in sort of creating spaces for sports and developing?
Swimming is a very ideal example. In Bangalore, which is known as a mecca of swimming in India, what happens is the public pools have been taken over by private players. But they also have earmarked time for the public. And then you have these kids coming in for
so
training.
Sort of, it's a bit of like philanthropy and then sort of their primary mandate.
But what happens is, because you have these clubs which have taken over, they also provide an average man a decent place to go to. Cricket, again, is one sport where I think it's completely private playing field now. Football, I think, has moved a lot into, 5x5 is what they play now.
5x5 turf.
Yeah, 5x5 turf.
Basketball has gone 3x3.
Basketball has gone 3x3. Yeah. It's also an indicator of how sport has evolved and how spaces is involved. So in a place where you had 11-a-side football, because you don't have space, you're dividing that into two and you're playing 2 matches simultaneously, or 4 teams are playing simultaneously. But if there's anything, I think we have to relook in terms of infrastructure and say, let's have these public spaces. There are lots of places. For example, I spoke about the Sullivan Police Grounds, heart of the city, right opposite Garuda Mall. It's just lying there. Of course, I think the police train there for a bit or do they march past or anything. It's a field where Dhyan Chand has played hockey.
Whoa.
Yeah.
They should put a plaque there, like Dhyan Chand walked over these hallowed grounds.
Yeah. And it's where some of the best Indian footballers, I think we have 7 Olympians from Bangalore, and all 7 of them have played football there.
Whoa. That's a lovely story.
Yeah, but then that space is just lying vacant. I think it's time we had a policy where you could reclaim at least the existing space to allow a child from one area to go out and say, I have some place to play. I mean, unless until you live in a plush apartment area where you have a basketball court or a swimming thing, what does an average child who just wants to go out and play with his friends, where does he go?
Okay, so, there was this very interesting statistics that I found, which is the World Health Organization recommends that there should be about 9 to 12 square meters of open playing space per person in a country.
In a country of 1.4 billion people.
And when we look at statistics in India, like obviously the cities are the worst because they're just like, our Indian cities are the most dense in the world. Somewhere like Bombay has there's 1 square meter of playing space. Bangalore is 2 square meters.
Slightly better.
And the highest of any city is actually Kanpur with 3 square meters. All other cities in India have less playing space per person.
Wow.
That's like you can just stack up a Sitolya Pithu there.
Question to both of you, it's good to play, but what other function do you think these public playing spaces were performing in society?
I think one thing which at least I certainly got, was the socialization, where I met children from other families, religion, class, caste, everything. So there was a diversity on the playground, which was very beneficial to me. And growing up in a traditional family, that was the place where I learnt a lot of things. It was a very good...
It was a community space.
It was a
Basically,
community space.
Outside of your school, if you wanted to be with somebody, that was the place where you would go. Like I remember learning pretty much every sport I know right now there. Right? Like there was no structured coaching either in school or we weren't going for coaching institutes outside school. So you'd go to these playing areas. That's where you would have somebody playing some other sport and you'll look and you'll learn. Or you'll have older kids playing there who will teach you, who will include you at times. So that's where we learned pretty much all our sports.
And then I felt like one more aspect is sometimes you don't even play. Like you might just go and watch. Like that's also just something that you get to do.
Yeah, I remember when I used to play basketball in Mysore, it was again in a park. There was a basketball court, public in nature, and there was a theatre next to it. And people who would come to the theatre early would come in, just randomly sit and watch, right? They would just watch whatever match was happening. I don't know if everybody understood it. It gave us the feeling that we were superstars because 5 people were watching us, but people watched. I think if there was a game, I remember my mom telling me, Mysore University Kho team, people would come with drums and all just to watch the Kho team in a public ground. That didn't happen to me, but I did have a few people. So there was public viewing too.
I remember one story my dad tells me is that, he grew up in Calcutta where the Maidan, and you find this across India, the Maidans, big open spaces where people play in Bombay, Shivaji Park, in Delhi, India Gate. In the Maidan, he would go and watch Mohan Bagan play. He would see India national players volley. And once he said that Pele came to Calcutta and played in that round and he got to see Pele up close.
That is something which needs to be documented.
I don't think I got access to any of these playing spaces, but mostly what I remember is just watching from the window or from the balcony others playing, and for some reason it wasn't time for me to go out, so I had to be inside, and I was absorbed. I was totally invested in what was happening, right? So I clearly remember those moments even now about how there would be hours that will pass you just watching somebody else play, and these would be just some other kids playing outside.
Yeah, there was some element of the sport which would catch you to watch. Yeah, so there was there.
So I think one statistics that really captures why we are losing public space in India is to compare India to China. So China is a model for a sports dominant nation, and it's the expenditure by India on sports is less than 2% of what China is investing. And this shows up in something like Olympics medals, where India has won maybe 10 to 12 Olympic medals in the last 2 decades, while China has won more than 250. I thought, let's just pivot and look at, India's been doing well in sports, and it seems to me that private parties, private academies, private trainers are playing a huge role in this rise of India as a sporting nation.
Yeah.
I mean, have any of you seen any of these changes happening?
No, for sure. There are now quite a few organizations who are very specifically looking at India doing well in Olympics itself, for example, right? So we have organizations like OGQ, you have this huge facility in Bellary, which JSW has put together. So there are a lot of these private players. Like in Bangalore, you have the Centers for Sports Excellence. We have the Lakshan Sports Academy. So there are a lot of these players who are coming up, who are focusing on high performance centers to get some of our athletes to perform at the top in the world level. Yeah.
And I was just looking quickly. I mean, of course, someone has to look closer, but if you look at all the Olympics medal winners over the last 20 years, almost all have come from private academies. So we spoke in an episode about how Gopi Chand Academy had a lot to do with badminton.
Yeah, Abhinav Bindra, I think, went all the way to Switzerland to train.
And he trained himself, like he set up his own training.
Yeah, it was all private.
I remember that Neeraj Chopra is well known for completely training on his own outside India.
So I think we have also had a general, private players coming in for not just even expert sports, but even everyday sports, right?
Yeah.
If you take Playo for that example, you open Playo in and around Indiranagar or center of the city and you search how many places are available, you get 900 plus.
Oh, wow.
Places where you can book and go play.
Yes. So in some sense, the lack of public playing spaces is now being complemented by some of these private spaces.
As an economist, one of the things I find is, privatization is good because the quality is improving. More people it might be reaching
Access,
to.
yeah.
But there's the other part, which is the positive externality part might be being lost. Where, for example, this ability of playing together, watching other people play, having access at the grassroots level for someone who might later become a professional sport, like those things that positive externality part is going away as we are privatizing.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem, right? Because one, these private academies, and I would completely vouch for public spaces to be there, because where else will you find a place where, for example, you are playing a 20-year-old playing with a 40-year-old veteran, right, who has played. So there is inter-experience changes and without any structuredness. So Playo and all you can select, I'm going to play an intermediate player, I'm going to play an expert player. One day you go to a basketball court, you find a guy who's wearing flip-flops who will beat you 0 to 10, right? Then you realize, okay, equipment is not anything. These are learnings which would happen. One. Second, I think access is the most important. Keep the, grounds open, let people come and play. And if not, a public good has to be owned by the public, right? And it is a public good. The moment the private players take up, the very logic of why they have taken it up.
Because, there's a price to it.
There's a price to it, there's a profit to it. All the externalities, I think, stop the moment the logic changes. So I think I am all out for public grounds, every ground.
So let me put a larger question then. Like, we know we are here, where we've improved as a sporting nation. We talked about it in our first episode. It's clear that our government is not right now funding to the extent that is required for a nation to be a sports nation. We are seeing in cities increasingly accessibility or availability of public playing spaces are going. What do you feel? Like, where should we head to, or what should be the future be like? Like, should it be back? Public should come back? Should private take over? Is there a different model?
I made my pitch. All public spaces.
So you're saying public grounds should be...
No, can you give me an example, Kailash? Like, it's kind of easy to say public, but we haven't seen public.
Yeah, I'll give you an example from Bangalore itself. Right here in Austin Town, the residents of Austin Town fought and made sure they saved a space where people would play football and everything. Again, the government was wanting to build a stadium and they said, no, we need this space, right? And we need those spaces because that is the only place where, without any restrictions, people can use it for any kind of games. right? No non-marking shoes, no one coming and saying don't sit there. That is only for expert players. Nothing. Everything. That is the only place where sports is a level playing field. Is a public space. That's my take.
Yeah, but I feel like we are already running behind the scenes. Like, yes, we can save the public spaces that are there right now, but there are already not enough public spaces. So the only way I feel like this can move forward is we have a free market. We have a lot of private players now entering to fill this gap of lack of space, right? So we have turf fields on top of roofs. We have even a small plot of land nowadays. There are 5-a-side turf fields coming up there. So those spaces are important. They are playing a very crucial role to make sure that more people are active. They are not perfect. Yes, they are not doing the positive externality part of it, where people are getting a space to play and there is an access problem. But I feel like at least there are enough people now who have some option which doesn't exist otherwise. And as this goes ahead, I also feel like if there is a need, if there's more knowledge about just spaces for people to play and people are willing to value that and pay for it, we might even have private spaces which are not as structured as they are now. That's also a possibility, but I think the market might get there after a bit.
So, when we were talking to Manuja earlier today, I remember she mentioned about how, there's another kind of model, where privates have to make money, but you are seeing examples and where privates can do both, which is both serve the public and also make money. Okay, so Kailash and Arvind, I thought let me just sum up something and give you maybe another kind of solution, that it's clear that public spaces are eroding. It's not only sports, by the way. If you're studying larger national debates, it's about forests, it's about mines, it's about lakes. Everything is eroding and being taken over by private. And there is a new kind of solution coming up in India, which is a kind of public-private partnership, where we found that private have the incentive to manage and keep quality of a product. Public's role is to create accessibility. So, I'm wondering if there's a role in the future for more public-private partnerships which bring in the best of both worlds and which kind of focus on what's now been identified. And, it's just yesterday our Prime Minister unveiled a new national policy for sports, which said sports is not only important for excellence, but also for development. And maybe that's one potential way in the future where we can get the best of both worlds and move towards actually being a sporting nation.
I really hope so.
Yeah, that could work.
So viewers, let us know about your memories of playing outside when you were young, and what has your experience been? How have spaces been changing, and do you think it's been for the better?
You're listening to
आप सुन रहे हैं
You're listening to सुनो था
നിങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുന്നത്
न्यू केಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ
रे कथा सुन रेडियो
റേഡിയോ അസീം പ്രേംജി
യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി